All right, let's get started. Welcome to our music tech workshop in what's possible now that wasn't before. Hear from amazing startups and university teams who spent the summer exploring and building new experiences that reimagine how we create music, connect with fans, and interact with sound. I am so excited to turn it over to Brooke Epley, SVP of Strategy and Business Development at ASCAP. Brooke, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Welcome, everybody. As Erica mentioned, we're here to spend some time exploring some of what's possible in music now that wasn't before and its impact on creatives. We're also honored to be joined today by composer and ASCAP board member Alex Shapiro, a trailblazer in her own right, spanning the domains of new music, nonfiction music writing, arts advocacy, public speaking, and wildlife photography. Thank you, Alex, for joining us.
It's such a pleasure to be here, and hi to all the attendees, E-tendees.
E-tendees, yes.
The E-tendees.
Additionally, we are joined by two of the companies who just graduated from this year's Music Tech Challenge that the ASCAP Lab conducted in partnership with the New York City Media Lab. This year, we asked the university and startup communities a question: how can emerging technologies reflect and inspire imaginative, exploratory, and creative approaches to music? We selected 4 teams to work with us during a 12-week program to move their projects into the next phase of development. Those teams are at the very early stages of development, synthesizing music from brainwaves, reimagining hybrid virtual and live event spaces, creating mixed reality interactive album experiences, and empowering creators with instant music tools. We are joined today by 2 of these teams who answered that question in very different ways and made incredible strides during the program. In fact, it was just announced yesterday at the kickoff session of this summit that they will each be receiving follow-on funding for, in Mythsynth's case, represented by Sinead Ng on your, your left, her project's potential for positive impact on music creatives. And in the case of Social by ... with Kate Stevenson representing on the right of your screen, for making the greatest strides during the program, including the launch of a pilot experience for their platform, which we'll talk about in a bit. So Kate and Sinead, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so again, welcome everyone. Now we're here to talk about what's possible now that wasn't before. So before we head into the future, I think we need to just quickly reflect on where we've been. Technology and music are not new bedfellows. You know, since the first instance of recording and distributing music, or you could argue simply making music with anything but the human voice, the two have always been fundamentally intertwined. So what is new about now? Alex, let's start with you. What is it like to be a composer in 2021? You know, tell us, what is keeping you up at night?
It is really wonderful to be a composer in 2021 and beyond, because we've never had as many tools as we have now. The world has changed a lot for us in terms of what we can do. So I'm a concert music composer who writes and produces a great many electroacoustic multimedia pieces for large ensembles like bands and orchestras and choirs. And in addition to the 50 or 100 musicians that I'll have on stage, there's an intricate pre-recorded and synced digital audio track that I create that serves as an equal and additional section in the ensemble. We couldn't do this to this degree before. So my goal in these pieces is to seamlessly blend the live and the recorded elements and make an immersive experience for the audience. And the stereo image from the musicians, and they're filling the stage, right, left and right in real life, and then the stereo or surround sound image coming from the house speakers, it all triangulates out to the audience. And the audience can't often tell where the sound is coming from. Is it live or is it recorded? They can't tell where the track begins and the live musicians end. And so I'm really seeking to create an immersive experience. The audio track offers sounds and pitches and textures and atmospheres that I program that they can't be produced by live instruments. That's why I'm using the track. And I hear these sounds in my head. And I use all the gear you see behind me to program them and to create them and to turn them into something that other people can hear. And my fascination with this pairing of, the analog and the digital is that it offers the possibility for artists like me to have a tremendous scope of sonic expression. It's pretty magical. In addition, these performances often include visual elements. You can see where I'm going with all this. The elements include lighting and videos, and sometimes I even have the musicians moving around, physical movement, which you don't see that much in concert music, by the way. It's kind of unexpected. And I have a background in commercial music and film and TV. And, I've always seen how responsive audiences and human beings are to music when there's a visual stimulus. So for over a decade, long before it was a COVID necessity, I've been using interactive web sessions via Zoom and Skype before that, of course, to work with all these large ensembles and speak to concertgoers all over the world. The more connection that musicians and audience members can have with the person behind the notes, the more connected their hearts are to what they are experiencing. It's really quite profound. So given what I've just described about my work, you'll instantly realize why I am really fascinated by the two projects being developed by our two guests today that you're going to hear about. They represent two major issues that creators like me face all the time, and those of you who are participating today and attending, for those of you who are creators. With regard to music composing and creation, you're going to hear from Sinead about MySynth, which is developing what many composers like me would say is their childhood fantasy, to be able to have one's brain hooked up to a computer directly and able to use our brain waves to register all the amazing sonic chaos in our heads without having to deal with the current physical input realities, like everything you see behind me, synthesizers and digital audio workstation apps and, instruments and notation and all that stuff. Wouldn't that be amazing to not have to have that? And not only is it a dream for professionals, but it's also an amazing asset for amateurs and everybody who wants to create music, because everybody should be able to do this equally and evenly. And on the other hand of the process is the importance of how creators can engage and interact with our audiences. And Kate from Social by ... is going to show you the next level practices that will make Zoom look like a cardboard cutout, folks, which of course we all look like on that platform. Right now, we all suffer from the limitations of lack of consistently fast internet connections, no matter where people are in the world. And it's an enormous problem, but it's going to improve rapidly, very quickly. A brand new world in which we can all feel as though we're connected to each other in the same room awaits us. And what Kate's going to show you is how audiences who are starved for some semblance of, a more fluid kind of online concert experience can be given a virtual venue that will feel much more human. So, the ongoing pandemic has changed the way we're willing to be entertained, right? And I view the world ahead as not an either or, either live or online. No. It's a wonderful and exciting hybrid flow between the two realities. So let's talk about that with our guests.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's a great segue for Kate to share a little bit more about what she's actually built.
Great, thank you. You can see my slides fine?
I'm not seeing them actually.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, my name's Kate. I'm one of the founders of a creative studio called ... based here in New York City. And pre-pandemic, we built immersive experiences for physical spaces. So places that you go and technology kind of brings people together in interesting, interactive ways. But when the world closed down as we knew it, we as a team kind of put our heads together and went back to the days of building massively multiplayer online games in the browser for kids. And we used to do this all around the idea of musical collaboration. So these worlds were built as a way for children to come and make music together online. And so we went back to this toolkit of multiplayer game design and started thinking about what we could do in this moment that brought back some of the informality, the serendipity of the real world to virtual gatherings. And specifically, we wanted to put quite a lot of restrictions on ourselves as game designers and game developers. You know, we can build very ornate worlds in 3D spaces, but we wanted it to be something that was really accessible to lots of people. So we made the kind of rule for ourselves that it had to be as easy as possible for anyone, regardless of their experience playing games. So we created this platform, and as experienced designers, that's about creating ways for intuitive exploration, bringing people together with creative ways to do little things together. Here is a photo booth that a group can do together online with our confetti cannon, or like this trivia game in our little pub, where you can play against each other and have themed questions based on your event. But while we were building this platform, we were really also interested in how the arts were adjusting to the pandemic. We watched performers use the tools that were available to them. We watched virtual performance become a kind of a popularized genre, and we really started imagining, like, what could we build for artists, for performers, for venues, to bring some of this community building into those spaces online. And so with the support of NYC Media Lab and ASCAP, we spent the summer researching, experimenting with artists, talking to venues. And as we're moving out of the pandemic, we're looking at what is a hybrid solution. I really liked your point earlier, Alex. It's changed, you know, and it's not one or the other, but what does it look like to have an offering for audiences in person alongside an offering for audiences virtually? And so that's what we really set out to do. And we did a pilot over the summer with Jalopy Theatre, a venue here in Brooklyn, New York. So I'm just going to show a little video demonstrating that, how that works. And essentially it's built on a social platform.
Hey, hi, how are you?
That's Elizabeth and I meeting in the space
I'm happy
outside.
you're here.
Me too. Should we go inside?
Let's do it.
And heading inside. And so we base this world on the actual
Jalopy actually
Jalopy.
have a record label, Elizabeth. If you follow me, I'll show you their merch stand over here.
And we integrated things like their little store so that they could sell merch within this world.
Wow,
records,
this is great.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool, right?
Should we check out the show?
Yeah, let's do it. I think it's about to start.
Zui zui zukrabashi goma misa zui chatsiboni o warete topinshan.
So that's kind of our little pilot. If anyone is interested in learning more about what we're doing, we welcome people getting in touch. But yeah, we're really keen to talk to people, artists, venues, anyone looking in the space who wants to play and experiment. We've found that thinking about it from the perspective of co-presence and community is kind of like what produces that stickiness and that kind of value for a group in this new hybrid model. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kate. Yeah, the experience you guys built is it really puts you it gives you the experience of being in the live venue. And we'll dive into that a little bit more in a second. We're going to turn now to Sinead so that she can tell us about MySynth.
Amazing. Yeah. So thank you so much, Brooke and Alex, for the introductions. Can you guys see my screen?
Not just yet. Maybe, hopefully in a second. There we go.
Great. So again, my name is Sinead Ng. I'm the founder and CEO of MySynth, and I'm also a sophomore at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music at NYU. So at MySynth, our mission is to translate the sounds you hear and imagine in your head, as Alex was talking about earlier, and turn them into digital instruments that will become a launch pad for creativity and musical expression. We are the first music software plugin company designed by musicians for musicians that bridges the gap between brain-computer interfaces and music creation tools. Within the next 10 years, the trend that we're seeing is that brain-computer interfaces will become the main way that humans interact with computers. As such, MySynth is driving the future of brain-computer interface applications within the music industry. We're driven to explore what will be possible for music creators with the advent of new technologies such as neurotech, Web 3.0, NFTs, and the metaverse. Our plugin will not only be for current music creators, but will also allow anyone who wants to create music to do so. We're also connecting with individuals with accessibility needs to create these tools and help them express themselves in a completely new way while also acting as a form of music therapy. We believe that collaboration between humans and AI can help us achieve greater things. And so My Synth will be a new form of musical expression that is driven by imagination and brain states. Our sounds are generated using a machine learning algorithm that takes user-specific data to generate personalized and unique sounds that really only you can create. This will diversify the types of music that is commercially released, as well as adding a cohesive foundation to the music that is created, which highlights their individual characteristics. Additionally, we're developing a brand new user interface that is much more interactive and easy to understand, as opposed to all the old systems that have been designed almost 50 years ago. And so we're completely reimagining the way that we as music creators interact with these music creation tools in order to express ourselves creatively. Ultimately, this will allow music creators to write and compose music with unlimited possibilities for sound design from a completely unique sound palette. The picture on the left that you can see is actually the demo that we built for the NYC Media Lab and ASCAP Challenge over the summer, where we took brainwaves and measured it to find how different sounds could be generated using these brainwaves. So if you'd like to learn more about MySynth, you can go to our website, mysynth.io, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about the project. And you can also view our full deck by taking a picture of the QR code or going to the link.
Great, thanks, Shanita. It's literally mind-blowing. You know, when we talk about I love also that I love those little emoticons. So I know, Alex, earlier you talked about some of the things that were on your mind and also why you liked some of these projects. Were there specific things that you wanted to mention about either MySynth or Social by Dot Dot that, you know, just are elements of what they built that kind of give you a sense for the possibilities that, you know, that would be fun to leverage as a composer?
Yeah, well, working backwards with MySynth and what Shanita just was showing us, it really is mind-blown territory, because you know, we've known this is coming down the pike for a while. It still is, of course, in its nascent stage, you know, of development. This is something that's going to take years to really be able to come into full force. But when it does, it is going to completely change the way humanity processes information. And I mean, I can't overstate rather, you know, how important this is. It is also hugely important for people with any kind of disabilities, whether they're physical or, in my case, for instance, vision, hearing, all kinds of things that, you know, many millions and millions of people feel currently, you know, slowed down or limited by some physical issues. That this will be a huge workaround, and it will make accessible and put everybody on an even playing field in a way that we haven't had tech be able to do before. So I'm really excited about this. And in terms of the amazing Social by Dot Dot presentation about, you know, the venues and these kinds of very interactive, highly interactive venues, it's like Second Life on steroids, basically, you know. The merch aspect to me is potentially really huge. I mean, you know, obviously the performance thing, getting people into a space where they feel, yay, I love these emoticons, they're cracking me up. Getting people into a space where they're sharing something and feel like they're actually connected to each other, as in real life, is hugely important. Getting them into a space from the creator's standpoint where they can also further support the creator by buying stuff, you know, and all these attractive links to point of sale items, both physical and digital, by the way, you know, it's limitless. And the wisdom of creating virtual rooms where they can avoid overcrowding, and they can have a limit to how many people are in each room watching the same venue. That way it encourages human beings to actually interact with each other, just like you would with the people sitting next to you in the row, you know, in an actual venue. That is quite wonderful to bring people together. You know, it's taking the breakout room, you know, to the next level, in a sense. And also being able to offer, different price tier tickets maybe that give different levels of access to the attendees. That is a possibility that, again, can be very great for commerce for the creators. I just think that it'll further break the boundaries for multimedia performances as well, because you got everybody there dialed in already to an immersive experience like what I was talking about with my work. So there is so much to be said for bringing people together in a completely engaging and attractive way in a virtual space like this.
Yeah, and Alex, that's a great jumping off point for the two teams. Just so Alex just mentioned a couple of it sounded like kind of near-term possibilities that that could be part of these product experiences that you're already thinking about and working on, frankly. But if you could look into the future, that over the past several years, you've secured sufficient funding to build out your idea to its ideal future state. You've rapidly prototyped. You've found product market fit. What kind of impact do you hope that your product might have on music and technology? And that's to either one of you want to jump in.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, we're just so interested in experimenting and understanding how audiences and artists can interact with one another. I think there's a lot of kind of interesting things that we could do with an artist on stage and a virtual audience and a physical audience all being in the same space. And so, I mean, for us also building these kinds of products and interactive experience in games, it's just kind of, it's endless. You can keep coming up with new ideas, but I think in the future we'll see a much tighter integration between all that things, and we'll have some really interesting ways that the artist is able to kind of directly interact with their fans in ways that we can't even imagine now. So that's what I'm really excited to see.
I think it'll be interesting to see how this idea of a hybrid experience almost still indicates that you're bringing two separate pieces together. But what about the future where they are truly integral to each other, and then you almost the virtual audience and the live audience are feeding off of each other, and that's something that's part of an experience that you expect to have when you go to these live events, and they are augmented by the participation of attendees, from virtual spaces into those that are in the quote unquote real space.
And a lot of the technologies that you're starting to hear mentioned, like virtual production, which is using game engines to power these big LED studios, like those kinds of spaces can become incredibly interactive in real time. So you can imagine as venues kind of start integrating this technology, like the potential for what you can do with the virtual and physical audiences, I think is really going to blow our minds. And I think the other thing that the pandemic has showed us that there's a whole lot of audiences that haven't been served historically that just have missed out on these things. And these thinking about things in this way where there is a hybrid model actually for some people is also giving them access to things they never had before, which is really exciting. So in many ways, we're going to see more people be able to interact and have access and feel part of things than we did before, which I think is also kind of going to help and see lots of interesting things emerge from that kind of inspiration.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Kate. And I would love to see that, again, as we come out of the pandemic, what does this new world look like? And, I would hope that we would keep these experiences kind of intertwined in different ways so that accessibility continues. Because I agree with that. Sinead, why don't we turn to you? What's the future look like for MySynth?
Yeah, well, Alex mentioned it earlier about how artists should really have all the tools and access to music creation. And that's really the core of what MySynth is built upon. It's accessibility, individualization, and really creating music and art that comes from your imagination, where your imagination is the only limit to the art that you create. And I think as an artist, that is such a powerful thing to realize, that we have the ability to conceive of things that aren't necessarily even real, that nobody else can see. And then we realize them and bring them to life. So I think MySynth is going to take a completely new direction for music creators and take these tools into a new form of musical expression that comes from the brain and your imagination. So looking ahead, we're planning on doing a suite of plugins that will hopefully eventually lead to a metaverse VR application for music creators that completely rethinks the studio and what music creation is. Because as a music creator, I'm sure Alex knows as well, we spend a lot of the time in the studio. I take engineering classes where we learn how to set everything up. And sure, all of that is very technical, it's needed, but is it really essential to the creativity? Because right now it seems like all of these tasks are really outdated, and we need new ways to create music that is quicker and helps us get into that creative flow. So I think that's what the future of music creation is going to look like, and we hope to lead that change.
I think when we think about how we use, music production tools right now, you could almost argue it's like a low bandwidth method of music creation, and what you're trying to do is get to the highest, bandwidth where you're kind of uploading from your brain, which again is just, I have no better expression than it blows my mind. But
yeah, I want to jump in on that concept and just say, to wrap it up with a bow, that we have two hemispheres on our brain, right and left, right? And one is responsible for the gesture. And that's what MySynth is all about, is connecting everybody with the gesture. The other hemisphere is when, right now, you have to take that gesture and deal with a math problem of notation, or deal with a tech problem of hooking something up so that your plugin works properly or whatever. That's the part of the brain we don't want to be dealing with when we're creating. And so what MySynth is going to be offering, this technology is going to offer us a way to completely bridge those two hemispheres.
So I see that we have a question down here, and definitely don't be shy about asking questions. That's wonderful. We will get to questions towards the end. I should have said that at the beginning. And so I'm going to maybe turn it back to the teams for perhaps one more question. And then we'll try to leave room for questions from the audience with the last 10 minutes or so that we have together. So I think an interesting, or maybe two questions, we'll see. I think an interesting aspect of kind of who we have gathered here today is that both of you have solved the same sort of challenge in different ways, and you both come to it from different angles as well. So, Sinead, you just described yourself as an artist, as a creative. So I'm interested in hearing about how you made the sort of the mental leap, the transition from being an artist and creative to a budding technology CEO. The process. Tell us about the process of applying a tech solution to an artistic problem that you were experiencing, and then maybe we'll kind of toss the reverse of that question over to Kate in a second.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I grew up in a household filled with technology. My dad worked with computers a lot, and so having been around that, I realized that there's a lot that we can do with computers. And I think the ultimate collaboration really comes when we work with AI, with computers in a collaborative manner to create art. And I think it just unlocks so many new possibilities. And we've seen it over and over again in music technology, from the recording studios to sampling, and like now it's streaming and all these crazy things where we can literally create music from our computer. And so I think that when I first moved to New York, I started looking around at what could be possible. And I kind of going into how I started this company is I was taking a class on emerging technologies, and we were talking about Neuralink, and it was really interesting to me. And so I looked more into it, and this whole neurotech field and industry is taking off, and we'll see that within the next few years. And so how could we include applications and tools for musicians to capitalize on this growth, this industry that is going to grow? And that's kind of where MySynth came in. And I tried to imagine what will be possible rather than what is already possible right now, and really thinking about preparing for the future and pushing the boundaries and limits of what is possible.
Awesome. And I love that. I think, MySynth started as an academic project. Then you got selected for this challenge, and that gave you a little bit of lift to kind of, attract some other people to work on the project. And now, you're turning it into a company, and that's just such an amazing story.
Yes, it is crazy how far we've come in the past 10 months, but we're doing incredible things, and I'm really proud of our team.
We are proud of you too. Great. So, okay, let's flip it over to Kate. So Kate comes at this from experience design, right? She talked a little bit about her roots in some of the gaming experiences that she and the team have built in the past. I'm interested in hearing about Dot's process, how they were able to take a specific set of technology and know-how that they already had and see the opportunity to translate that into a music industry facing solution.
Yeah, so we're pretty technology agnostic as a studio. We're very much, we like to set up kind of like, what is the goal? What are we trying to do? And then find the right tools. And I think that also speaks to our team. A lot of us are, creative technologists, but we're also come from other backgrounds. So no one is, there isn't this division of tech and art. Everyone is an artist and a technologist. And I think that process allows us to be really creative about how we approach problems. And we're also very iterative. So we'll just try things. And essentially social came from that idea of like, hey, let's make something that's so lightweight in the browser that anyone can do, that my dad can do, that a CEO who's never played a game before can do. And then let's find all these ways that we can make it fun and create stronger social bonds, create memories together. And that's really why people would come back for more, right? Because you have this really effective social experience. So our process is very iterative and very creative, and the technology kind of comes in behind to support that vision.
That's great, Kate. Yeah, not tech first. It's problem solution. Okay, this is the lightning round, and then we're going to move to questions and answers before we run out of time. Lightning round for Sinead and Kate. Is there anything that someone in the audience could help you with right now? If you had a fairy godmother, what would help the most?
You can go first, Sinead.
So we're currently doing a fundraising round, and so we are looking for investors. So if anybody is interested or knows anybody and would like to get in touch with us, you can email me. It's shaneda@mysynth.io. So that's shaneda@mysynth.io. And we're always looking for input from musicians. If they want to try out the product, you can go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll be launching a closed beta at the beginning of 2022. So be on the lookout for that.
Awesome.
And then from our end, we are doing a whole round of upcoming pilots with all kinds of different artists and venues. And we're always interested in talking to other artists and venues who are interested in what we're doing, exploring, and want to share their experience so far with the tools they've used, and look at ways that we can kind of level things up to the next level of interactivity. So yeah, we're looking for a lot of those conversations are really interesting to us at the moment. And we are always on the lookout for collaborators. So if there's someone in the audience that likes what we're doing and is interested in learning more about our team and how we work, we're always interested in meeting new people and understanding ways that we can build our teams around these kinds of projects.
Great. Okay, so with the 8 or 9 minutes that we have left, we'll take a couple of questions. So if you have questions, you can put them, there's a question box that should have popped up on the right, which is different from the chat. You could put it in either, but the question box is useful because if you're in the audience, you can kind of +1 a question if you really want to hear it answered. But I'll start with the first question that just appeared in the chat box a little while ago, since that was the first one. But please populate your questions in the meantime. So Chris Resnack says, thank you for putting this together. Question for Kate. What are your thoughts on how ... could work with concerts from other music genres like rock or hip hop? Those involve a lot of interaction between the audience and artist, like dancing, call and response, crowd surfing. Just kidding, he says.
I mean, that's not kidding. I started as a dancer, so I'm so interested in how we can integrate actually like skeletal tracking into some of these spaces to actually have like a physical input to what you see. So yeah, I think these are all the kinds of things that we would love to experiment with. I think we could totally do we could do all those things. I think we could find a way, but it's just a process of kind of creatively testing and experimenting. But that's exactly the space I was talking about in the future. I think that's what it will look like to go on to an online concert. You'll be able to do all these things and it'll be highly interactive. So yeah, really excited about it.
Awesome. Okay. And then we've got this other question is for Sinead. How did you collect the data needed to create the machine learning algorithm for your product?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So for our demo that we're creating, it's mostly a small sample of data that we're collecting from musicians locally. However, the product itself is going to have a sort of standardized model when you first purchase it and when you first start using it. But as you use it more, it'll start asking you questions based on how you alter your sounds and your preferences, and your responses will be inputted back into the machine learning algorithm. So essentially, the machine learning algorithm is learning what your preferences are and how your brain waves react to certain sounds and exactly how you think and conceive of those sounds, because as we know, everyone's brain waves are a bit different. And so that method will create a very personalized and unique sound palette for each individual user.
That's interesting. The way that your product can be built now is very different than how it might have been able to be built, I don't know, 10 years ago. So it would have been more of a one size fits all. This is the shape of what a typical brainwave thinking this way would look like. Therefore, it sounds this way. But yours, because of the machine learning, can be much more personalized, which is amazing to think about.
Yeah.
The palettes possible.
I've got a question for Sinead on this. Years ago, I did some biofeedback, where they hook you up with diodes and your theta waves, I think it was, control something that's happening on screen. And I know you're not a neuroscientist, but you just play one on yay. But I'm just curious, what are the similarities or differences between what people know from biofeedback and where that is taking us with generating sounds?
Yeah, so right now there have been a lot of strides in music and neurotech, especially pertaining to EEG waves, which is going to be the non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. So anything you can wear, essentially, that'll scan your brain waves. And what they've found is that things like rhythm is detectable, even imagined music after you listen to a song is possible. And so really it's trying to take all of those different elements of music that we're able to kind of see in the EEG waves and like putting them all together into this commercialized and user-friendly product.
All right. So with the couple of minutes that we have left, maybe I'll throw it back to Alex with the potential for Sinead and Kate to jump in any point that it makes sense. But I'm curious, extend out 10 years. How do you think the craft of songwriting and composing will have fundamentally changed?
Is that for me or for our guests?
That's for you first, and then
for me first. Well, I think we're seeing it right here on the screen. I think it's going to be a much less clunky. We're not going to have to be so reliant on physical clunky tools to get us from point A to point B to point C. We're just going to be able to get straight from A to Z by using the power of our minds, by using the power of interactivity. As I said before, one of the key things is if everybody, no matter how rural an area they live in, can have equally fast connection speeds, that is going to send us zooming, so to speak, into the future of how all of this can really, really work. That is one of our physical limitations right now, that is not going to be a limitation in the future. For composing and for creating, it means that you're going to have this instant access to your instincts and be able to instantly share your instincts with other people who might be interested in experiencing them too. I mean, that's hugely social. It's hugely human. And, you know, when sometimes people say, oh, digital and tech and that, it's anti-human. No, it's not. The best of it, which is what you guys, everybody here is seeing with these presentations today, is that it brings out the humanity. It gives humanity a chance to thrive. Especially, by the way, if you don't want to share germs. But really, I love the concept that it is both in person and virtual. There will be a beautiful seamless blend with all of this.
I think that's a great point about the humanity of technology. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Alex puts it so beautifully too. I guess the way I see it is more that right now music seems to be at a point where everyone is using the same tools and samples, and we all have access to everything that is out there because of the internet. We have all this access. And so there's like this sort of, I'm sure Alex also can agree, like you can't pick a sound, for example, because there's so many to choose from. It's like we're overstimulated by all the information that is coming towards us. And so really tapping into your inner consciousness and like your inner voice would be really powerful, because rather than all the information that's coming out at you, your voice is special and it should be heard. So I think this collaboration, again, with technology and music is really what's going to move us forward. Another thing that I'm very excited about is NFTs and how royalties are going to be distributed to songwriters and producers and artists more fairly with NFTs and blockchain, and how that's going to completely change the way that people interact with their fans and distribute their music and share that music with other people. So very, very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the commerce side of that and the royalty and copyright issue, because, I'd like to understand, like with the e-venues, for instance, like with social, outside of already licensed providers like YouTube, Facebook, all of that, where we're still trying to get the rates up, of course. I want to know what the royalty picture will be like, because what are you licensing, when the venue is virtual and when everybody is creating as well as consuming simultaneously. It's a Wild West world out there when it comes to copyright, and we all know that. And I think the most important thing, and I say this with my ASCAP hat on, is that we're all anticipating the changes and prepared for them. We're not going to get caught behind the 8 ball. We're not going to be unprepared. We have to know what's coming down the pike and see it, because the future is the present. It is absolutely the present, and there's no excuse for us to not see how this is going to be working for and sometimes against artists. And we have to protect creators. Yeah.
And thank you, Alex. I think I see Eric on screen. That must mean that it's our time. So let me just close with a quick little blurb just on kind of the ASCAP Lab and something upcoming that I want the audience to know about. But just, it's obvious really that disruption and innovation can come from anywhere, and learning to harness that change has never been more relevant. And so the ASCAP Lab's Immersive Music Studio Challenge allows ASCAP to work with and nurture emerging industry talent and to explore new ideas, new technology, new business models that create future opportunities for songwriters and for creators. So later this month, I want to be sure to mention that we're releasing an episode of Versed, the Ascap Podcast, all about the intersection of music and technology, where you can hear more from these two teams that you just heard from today about their projects, their visions for the future of music. And you can find that podcast in a couple of weeks at ascap.com/podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, to learn more about the ASCAP Lab, please visit ascaplab.com. And if you'd like to get involved, please consider reaching out to us at lab@ascap.com and be on the lookout for future events hosted by the ASCAP Lab. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Alex, Sinead, and Kate. This was great. It was fantastic to, hear more about what you're doing and what's ahead. So
thank you, Brooke.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Fantastic session. Let's get some of these fun reactions going.